Gosh, I had not intended on making a video today. So, oh goodness. I've been fighting this horrible nausea. So, this horrible nausea. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I have to get ready here. So, the world is heating up so fast that, you used to have something happen every year, then every 6 months, and every month, and every week, then every day, then every hour. Now you got it minute by minute, you know. And for those of you that think this election coming up is going to make a bit of difference, you're wasting your time, because America has already chosen wokeism over strength. And unfortunately, a generation of young people have figured out that just handing over the country to a global world order of people that you don't know, you can't vote out of office, and that will just hand over the country in a bloodless coup, essentially, is what's going on. Used to be called treason back in my day. And back in my day, treason was a capital offense. Capital means punishable by physical punishment. Like the man and the woman who gave the plans for the BOMB to the Bear Country, they either electrocuted them or hung them. I forget which, but they did it rather quickly. So they didn't play back then, And back then you didn't have people running up and dumping water on cops and spitting on cops and dumping urine on cops. It was a totally different world. But I guarantee you this election will be the last gurgle, the last DEATH rattle of America. And I'm not making fun of it. It's a tragedy. But the voice of the people have spoken. They've listened to people like that comedian, Bill Maher, and a man who gets on international media without brushing his teeth or washing his hair. Someone who's purportedly to have horrible hygiene, to where if you were on his show, you would want to social distance, as a matter of survival. But yet he's going to tell everybody, what to do, and he's going to make fun of Trump, and nobody wants Trump because he's mean and he makes mean tweets. So we have to get somebody, who's African American, trans, lesbian, non-cisgendered, woke, and a whole bunch of of things in front of the qualifications that they seek now with a personal pronoun of Z and them and all of this other stuff. That's the person they want now in the Oval Office. And I believe it's going to be a woman. It'll be Nikki Haley, or it'll be Michelle Obama. And it might even help Michael to come out as a trans woman. It will help her in the as far as the number of people voting. The more he can come up with, he's this, that, and the other, the more it'll help. And fam, those two girls, they're real parents in various. Hey, Lewis, how you doing? Those two girls, you can see their true parents in many videos walking behind Barry and Michael, walking behind them, going along, with their true parents, their true children. All that stuff was made up, and people who have outed them have paid dearly, even with their lives. You figure, what's her name, the comedian? She outed them, and then all of the sudden, this doctor from nowhere came in on her procedure for her endoscopic procedure, and she wound up with her air being cut off and her heart failed. The lady that had all the plastic surgery. And then Barry and Michael's chef, who was a professional swimmer, drowned literally in their backyard. All of these people have their secrets, and they're Fabian socialists, and they will do anything to keep their secret. The woman who certified Barry's birth certificate, and originally, they put African American on his birth certificate, and African American wasn't a term back in 1961. It was Caucasian, Negro, Mongoloid, and the B word. And I know that because I had a brother-in-law who was born out of wedlock, and his birth certificate had a big B word stamped on it. BASTD, and wherever he went, he had to show that birth certificate with this great big B word stamped on it, for job interviews and credit cards and whatever. Wherever he had to take his birth certificate, the poor guy had to bring that birth certificate with the B word stamped on it. But in any case, this election is not going to make a bit of difference. We've all, like I said, America has already chosen our path, and it's the path of destruction. And God gives a country over to their enemy when they spit in the face of God. See, God is not mocked. He knows by giving these people the very things that they want, they'll self-destroy. And it's unfortunate because those of us that can see it coming, and those people of faith that don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, that's why the church in America is of little to no effect. Is people like the very nice man who talks about saying a few words and booga booga, you're born again, and you don't want to sin against God. Both of those are true, but the one thing is a half-truth, because he won't define sin, because if he did define it, it would turn off a lot of his viewers, and he would lose a lot of his viewership. So they're not going to define sin And people like me that will tell you you have to try and live holy through the power of the Holy Spirit. He says, well, we're legalistic, you know. But it says right in the Word of God, God hates hands that shed innocent blood. So if you think you're a Christian and you are for the scraping out of a baby out of its mother's belly, like seeds out of a pumpkin, I'm sorry, according to the Word of God, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be raptured. But this man, see, they don't want to mention that. They don't want to mention that because, you know, they don't want to offend anybody. But Jesus said, I have come to set at odds husband against wife, mother against son, son against, you know, sister, and all of this. Jesus came and he separated people. There's no sitting on the fence. You're either one or the other. And this nation has decided for its destruction. And God will not let, once it goes to one generation of children that get perverted, God in any society cuts it off. When it gets down to the children and bestiality in Canada, bestiality is legal, and people practice bestiality in America. You know, they practice equine bestiality with dogs, laying up in bed with a dog, you know, lying there with the dog on top of you on your bed or your sofa. And I know I'll get a lot of hate texts, you know, from that, and that's okay. But see, in my day, you didn't lay up with an animal, you know, and have the animal grind its anal glands all over your furniture so that, you know, your furniture in your house smells like a toilet. No, an animal was an animal, and you didn't say that the animal was your baby daughter's brother or something like that, like they do now. And they'll let the animal lick the baby all in the face, and then they wonder why a few months later the baby has to go to St. Jude's, you know, healthcare system to have all of this stuff straightened out. And for you people that say that a dog is clean after it's licked its butt or another dog's butt or its private parts, by all means, go to a hobby store, get a collegiate microscope, let the dog lick a slide, put it under the microscope, and you'll see all sorts of parasites and wiggly jigglies on that slide, you know. And people say, well, the dog licked them in the face and they're fine. Well, you wait till 6 or 9 months down the road when you have pruritus from parasites and your belly button itches and your behind itches and your nose and your ears, every orifice will itch because there are parasites right there. And the parasites like to move around and peek out the window every so often. And so it gets very itchy and scratchy, and that's called pruritus. So in any case, people are hard-headed now. They figure that if the consequence doesn't happen immediately, then it's no hurt, no foul. And they make no association between the two, between their actions and the consequences that pop up months or years later. But in any case, like I said, we're in the calm before the storm. And the reason that I wanted to make this video is because NY Prepper has come out with an excellent video. It's an emergency video, as well it should be, because the bear country, seemingly according to what he's described, has reactivated what they used to call during the Cold War the woodpecker. And the woodpecker was this enormous antenna that sent out bursts of energy. And they thought that it was just like a radar system, but it was more. It works like a ground fault, one of those sockets, a ground fault, a GFI socket. Now, for you trolls, I'm trying to take something complicated and simplify it. So this is not necessarily apples to apples, but what I'm trying to explain, like a ground fault circuit, if one amount of energy goes out and it comes back as a reduced amount of energy, it trips the circuit. So the way the woodpecker works is it sends out this signal, and they assumed that it was just a radar signal, but they found out that it was hooked up to a complex of computers. And when they went in after the Chernobyl accident, the complex had been gutted, so that Westerners couldn't figure out what they were doing. Essentially, they assumed that it was just a radar system. And I know about this going back because when I worked for CompUSA, the government bought a very expensive laptop from my store. And they came in and they, picked the laptop up. And I asked the guy, this thing is so far beyond what the normal customer could afford or what the normal customer could buy. I said, what's up with this? And the guy said, well, this laptop is going into NEWCLEAR, and that's misspelled on purpose for you trolls. On this platform, you got to talk in code so that you don't get whacked. He said it will go into a locker so that if push comes to shove, the rockets can be launched from this laptop. So I told the guy, sarcastically, well, it was, we were glad that our store could be of service in the promulgation of WW3. So about 10 years ago, I worked for a very prestigious company in a super high pressure job making circuits for the military and various aeronautical companies. And we got this circuit that was from, I have to use the abbreviation, NSW, and there's one more letter. But, the place in White Oak. So we got an order for this 12-layer circuit board. And it said that it was an air conditioning control for a submarine. And so I looked over the plans for the board, and I was what was called the plan interpreter. And I would take the chicken scratch that came in over the fax machine, and I would convert it to CAD, and I would estimate the number of boards and material to build this thing. And you usually had 45 minutes. It was a horrendously stressful job. And the young man that took over my place when I left, I couldn't keep my blood pressure down, and I wound up going to the hospital a couple of times because I couldn't work that job and keep my blood pressure down. So a very intelligent Indian young man replaced me, very handsome, very beautiful, dark complexion, dark hair, and a full head of hair. When I saw him a year and a half later, he came out of the hotel for whatever reason. He looked like an old man. He had silver hair. His hair was almost as white as my beard. And that's from stress and copper draining out of your system, and your hair turns white. And like like Bathhouse Barry, when he became president, and then a few years later he had white hair. It's from stress. So in any case, I looked at this 12-layer circuit board, and I told the boss, I said, this is not for an air conditioning unit. This is a dead man circuit, so that when the order is given, it fires off the rockets in the submarine, and it does it in a pattern so that it doesn't rock the submarine and sink it. It was a very ornate, complicated board. And the boss went, shh. He said, just do it. Just do it. Intimating that very probably the office was bugged, and that the powers that be could listen in whenever they want to see if we were giving away, America's secrets or anything like that. But I was a bondable employee. Bondable means that you've never been charged or gone to jail for anything, so that you're bondable and trustworthy, And back in the day, they would not even give you a security clearance if you were homosexual, because they figured that homosexuals could be blackmailed. And that's why the whole outing thing came, where people came out of the closet, and then you couldn't blackmail them with that. My aunt worked for American Red Cross in the 1930s and 40s. And back then, if they had discovered that she was a lesbian, she would have been fired from the Red Cross, and she would have been blocked from being able to work any government jobs. That's how serious being branded homosexual was back in the day. But regardless, the boss was like, shh, just build it. So I built this circuit, and you could see that the circuit connected to the different silos that it was going to fire off, and that it was definitely not an air conditioning circuit for a submarine. It was a missile silo circuit. And it was so that when the word is given, you just slap a button and the thing automatically fires all of the missiles to their destinations, which are pre-programmed. And America uses hardwired instructions, not literally hardwired, but they're pre-programmed. Now, the Bear Country's newest stuff can dodge and be changed on its way to a location. So they can sucker punch another country by sending munitions over and then changing their final destination at the last minute. So it's indefensible. But in any case, for those of you that are sitting in mommy and daddy's basement playing video games, assuming that the government or anybody else is going to take care of you. Nothing could be further from the truth, and you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. I'm sorry. You're not going to make it. If you're not putting aside food and water and blankets and flashlights, and you're not practicing, camping out once a month and living off the grid and everything else, you're not going to make it. And fam, when it really hits home here in America, which I believe will be shortly after the election, this election is the very last chance to try and do something about this. But see, the one man that could do something about it, he was mean, and he made mean texts, and he said mean things about people. So we don't want him. We want somebody who's bi-trans, non-cisgenic, hydrogenic, hydrolyzed, sterilized, but not colonized, because that's imperial, and that's white supremacy and all of this other stuff that they're slandering people with in order to shut them down. That's racist, that's white supremacy. And these cards have been played so many times. They're the oldest card in the deck, and you can tell when somebody's going to get out the race card on you because it's the most wrinkled up card in the deck. It's been played so many times, But America, you made your choice. Instead of choosing for the strong man who gave us 4 years of peace and prosperity, you chose for this circus that we have in charge now. And Nikki, whatever her name is, she is just as liberal as the rest. She's not going to do anything about the influx of people coming into this country. And I'm not saying that most of them are bad. And I would never say something like Donald did when he put his foot in his mouth and he said that these people looking for a better way of life are poisoning the very blood of America. I would have never said anything that insensitive and stupid, And people tried to coach him. People tried to coach him to smoothing out his words and all, but he loves being an antagonist. And when you're an antagonist, you can't get the cooperation of the general public. So he became ineffectual. And the whole thing about them trying to run him as a candidate, it'll never happen this time around, because we know that even if he gets into office, he will provoke such a firestorm of resistance, that the stuff really will hit the fan. So all of that is fantasy that these people, are saying, America great again, because you can't give people what they don't want. And they've been taught otherwise. They've been taught that if they just hand America over, it'll be bloodless, it'll be convenient, and you can't vote these people out of office. But if they don't do what you want them to do, we're going to get out in the streets and we're going to blow our whistles and we're going to have our cardboard signs. So you better watch out, New World Order, because we'll blow our whistles on you and we'll get out our cardboard signs. And fam, they could care less. They could care less about that, because they know how to starve you, cut your water off, cut your electric off. They're not worried in one little bit about your cardboard signs and whistles. And the only thing that you're gonna do by getting out in the street with all this rah Palestine stuff and all of that is you're becoming puppets for them. These people are the very same people that rejoiced out in the street the day that the twin towers came tumbling down onto 3,000 unsuspecting innocent people that were branded as supremacists and imperialists because they went to work that day trying to earn a living for their family. So they were branded as bad people and capitalists, So they said that those innocent people deserved what they got. Hey, Justin. So in any case, fam, I'm going to tell you, having the background that I do, if this is, which I think it is, the bear country turning the woodpecker back on, that we are this close from the stuff hitting the fan. Because if those signals go out, boop, 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 and they come back, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, in one area, the bear is going to assume that some amount of catastrophic something or the other happened in that area, and it's going to automatically set off the system to take care of business. And it's in the Bible. It says that they crackle coming over the mountains like horses and chariots. It describes missiles in the Bible. They crackle coming over the mountains with the sounds of horses and chariots. That's them describing missiles coming back down in the terminal phase. Now, fam, this is only my opinion, but I believe it's very valid. I believe that the last chance that America has will be if England gets whacked first. And there are several reasons that I believe that the bear country will whack England before they whack America. The reason being is England doesn't really have anything that anybody needs as far as like oil or anything like that. So, I mean, the English are very smart as far as their brain pool, but as far as commodities or anything like that, not that much. The island is far enough away that if the bear whacks England, that the fallout by the time it gets back to the bear country, won't be that much, won't be that devastating. And the third thing is that Russia will probably whack someone like England first to give a warning to the rest of the world that they are serious and they're tired of getting BOMB ED'd every day. Now, if you don't know that, rockets have been flying into Moscow and buildings have been destroyed and lives have been lost. So we are already in the beginning of WW3, whether you want to admit it. Even the Pope admits it. Even the Pope admits that we're in the beginning of WW3. And this stuff doesn't happen quickly. It'll happen quickly once everyone decides to push the button. But for right now, it's a chess game. It's a worldwide chess game of this person makes this move and then that person makes that move. But then all of a sudden, it'll become a game of dominoes where one person knocks over this piece and it goes over the whole world. Now, take these into consideration. This administration has feckled. That's my new term for the admin. They feckled away our emergency fuel supply. They feckled away our stockpiles of ammunition. They feckled away our economy by shutting it down and giving whatever money we had to everybody in the world except us. On your CB, well, the signal is at various. This woodpecker signal is at various kilohertz, and mostly it comes over shortwave radio. So, but it doesn't seem like it's code because it's a consistent boop, 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 boop. So what I'm saying is it's more likely like reaching out like a sensor, like radar, in that it goes boop, boop, boop. But if one area goes beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, and then it goes beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, they'll know that something is incoming, or they know that something has already been destroyed. And like I said, at this point, it's automatic to where it automatically will trigger whatever computer is responsible for that area and trigger whatever retaliatory strike. And fam, they've had this stuff from years ago. When you start hearing about it in the general public, that means that they've had this stuff for 10 or 20 years. But they, like I said, the Chernobyl power plant accident in 1986 was very important because people have moved back into the Pripyat Chernobyl area, and so that made the scientists figure that, well, once an area gets nuked, you wait 30 years and it'll get cold enough where you can move back in. So you move back in and you have your Geiger counter. I have a Geiger counter myself. And if you don't, you should have one. But I have a Geiger counter, and I can go to the store and you can hold that Geiger counter up to a pile of coconuts, and you can hold that Geiger counter up to a pile of bananas, and it'll go off because of the natural radiation that coconuts absorb because of the milk in the coconuts, and the bananas are a source of radioactivity. So, yeah, I got my own Geiger counter. And people have moved into Chernobyl and Pripyat, mostly old people, because our bodies aren't forming like children. Children are very susceptible to radiation. Old people, not so much, because like I said, everything is already formed. But it gave the scientists the idea, hey, if they nuke somebody, then that's not the be all end all. If you go to Canadian Prepper's channel, he's talking all the time about the survivability of WW3. And there will be a lot of people that survive it because of these people that are making these huge bunkers, and the government has these huge bunkers underground. That's where all the good food is going, and most of the shortages in stores now are for two reasons. A, because worldwide we only grew half the amount of food that we need for a year in 2023. And B, all the governments are stockpiling food for continuity of government. But being given a choice of having to hunker down in a bunker for 6 months with Jerry Nadler or Hillary Clinton or any of those other pukes. Excuse me. I didn't mean to say pukes. Cough. I would just rather stand out in the open and be turned into a pile of ashes that blows away like a leaf on a fall day, rather than being cooped up in a bunker with those pukes. Sorry, I don't know why the cough all of a sudden came back. So, but in any case, fam, the stuff, we are in the lull before the storm. And if you're in mommy and daddy's basement playing, Grand Theft Auto, waiting for somebody to call you up to dinner, and you're going to go up to dinner and you're going to eat like a dog in a pan and not thank God for your food or thank your family for a roof over your head, and you're not going to thank the people that grew the food out in 109-degree heat, because the progressives, those nice progressives, want everybody to have a $15 an hour salary, but they don't want to pay that themselves. So, what to do? Oh, we'll flood the country with all of these people that'll come in. Like Jerry Nadler said, we need somebody to dig up our vegetables so they don't rot in the ground. They always step in their own words, because the heart of a man comes out through the mouth. And if you give them enough time, they will tell you what they're all about. Like Hillary Clinton that day, saying that she was happy that the Council of Foreign Relations was right up the street so she could get her marching orders. Wait a minute. Why would the Council of Foreign Relations be giving the U.S. Secretary of State at the time marching orders on foreign policy and all of this other stuff? Marching orders. Why would that be the case unless we're no longer in charge of our own government, which we're not? Fam, we've been sold out a long time ago, and all of these people that are backing up this admin, they're like people in a banana republic. They're choosing their sides because they know that the U.S. middle class is being tromped on, and there's not going to be any middle class. It's going to be people who are stone cold poor, and then it's going to be the elites. The elites are the yes men that have been empowered, like our government has empowered 90,000 new tax collectors. But wait a minute, they gave them GUNS. Why would somebody who's collecting tax from somebody who owns a landscaping company, who went down to South America to buy $4,000 or $5,000 worth of plants for his company, and then when he got to the airport, the government took his money away and eventually shut his business down because he went he went to an airport with cash that he earned to buy plants for his business, to make some more money. But see, the government's like, well, if you did that, you must have done something wrong. Even though the guy never had a criminal record or anything, they took his money and they said, well, you can reapply for your money. He reapplied for it, never got it back, ruined him. He broke the promise he made to his customers who paid him to have their landscaping done at their mansions. And then they didn't get what they had paid for. So they went after this guy. It ruined his whole life. but yet somebody who has pornography, child pornography, and pictures of hookers on his laptop, nothing happens to him, because the system is broken and it's not even, it's not equal for everybody. And where do these politicians who just gave themselves a raise, by the way, just voted themselves a raise because they're doing such an excellent job? Yeah, they're doing an excellent job of destroying this country. And so these politicians come to Washington and they're promised an excellent salary of $80, $90, $250,000, whatever. But wait a minute, all of a sudden they're millionaires. All of a sudden they're multi-millionaires. Well, where did they get their millions? A couple of them write a book like that snivelly excuse and backstabber Mike. Mike was given a high position of authority, and he backstabbed his boss, and then he wrote a book in the name of God, because he's such an honorable person. Backstabbed his boss, because he was totally milquetoast. See, back in the day, fam, before they had cereal, what they gave the old people with no teeth was, you took bread and you toasted it, put a little cinnamon sugar on it, put milk on it, and that was called milk toast. And that's what they gave to the old people. But milquetoast Mike not only betrayed his boss, but then he wrote a book about it. But then that wasn't enough to write a book about it. He had to make daggone sure and tell you what an honorable person he was, because he wasn't willing to look into election peculiarities. I'll put it that way. He wasn't willing to slow the train down so that they could investigate, all of these mail-in ballots. And, my father, who's been dead for 10 years, and my mother, who's been dead for 20 years, both voted Democrat this time around, and they never voted Democratic in their life. But they did in this past election. I can tell you, they voted Democratic, even though they've been dead 10 and 20 years. That kind of thing. And Mike wasn't, he didn't have the guts to slow the train down so that they could look into the truth. And we're being told that you either accept the story that you're told, or, we're coming for you, that kind of deal. That's why I'm not voting in this election, because if I were to vote the wrong way, all it would do is get me put on a watch list. And the latest watch list that they have now, and I forget who did the video on the keywords. Keywords are words that you use that get you put on a watch list. Words like, now the government says that if you look up buying Bibles, that you are a threat to the government. If you look up Bibles or anything to do with the gospel or Christian, so if you go to your computer and you type in Bibles or Christian or ammunition or anything like that, it's going to get you gated so that you get put on a watch list. So then your phone calls and everything go to a higher priority of the place up the street in Odenton, right up the street from me, where they sniff your computer and your cell phone and all that other stuff. But we do that to ourselves with Echo and Alexa and Google and all of that other stuff. We essentially turn in our own private, conversations that they can listen to. Very surprisingly, I didn't know that my 60-inch smart TV had a camera on it. But back when I had it Alexa enabled, which I don't now, Alexa took a picture of me through the TV and displayed it and said that I was grumpy, and I was like, wow, this thing is getting too scary. So I decided to disconnect it. And of course, the TV still has all of its capabilities, regardless of whether I, canceled out Alexa or not, because it keeps asking me. I'll be watching a TV show and it will say, what do you think of this store or that store? And fam, the number one store brand that the government sniffs is Bass Pro Shops. So if you go online to Bass Pro, that's another keyword that they keep an eye on. People who, buy knives or fishing equipment because they figure they're preppers. See, they want it someday so that you can't buy or sell unless you have their mark. And if you're able to go out to a stream and catch a fish and feed yourself, or if you have knives so that you can hunt or defend yourself, they don't want that. They want it so that they can shut off your water and your electricity and all that other stuff. And for those of you that own land, there's a new law in certain states where if you don't register the pond or the lake or the water on your land, the government can claim that. Don't take my word for it. Google it for yourself, that the government can claim that water on your land. And in some places, it's actually illegal to collect rainwater. And the reasoning that they give for that is they say that if you collect rainwater and then you flush your toilet with it or you wash your dishes with it, then when that rainwater goes down the drain into the sewer system, that you're cheating the system because you're not paying for that water to be treated and put back into circulation, as if you were if you use the water out of your faucet, which is metered. They want everything on lockdown. But if you want to know the real deal, go to NY Prepper. NY Prepper, go to Monkeywerx, MONKEYWERX, Monkeywerx. Canadian Prepper, Nate is always right on target. Full Spectrum Survival, he's a little bit over the top for me and dramatic. But Nate, a Canadian Prepper, very brilliant, very articulate young man who always does his homework, and the production quality is excellent. If you go to Redacted, REDACTED, their production quality is excellent. And then I watch Gravitas Neon News, which comes from India, because they don't have any reason to lie about us. So they will tell you the real deal. And then I watch Behold Israel, Amir Sarfati, because Amir Sarfati used to be an intelligence officer for the Israeli army, and he knows all about what's going on in the Middle East, the real deal. And it's very obvious that he's still connected to the intelligence people. So I had two brother-in-laws. One was in the Air Force intelligence and communications. The other was literally one of the men in black. And we always used to joke because he was such a mild-mannered guy around the family, and he drove a black Chevy and wore a black suit and was a very quiet man. But he always had that smirk, that Mona Lisa smirk, like he knew far more than he was ever telling you. But fam, we live in harrowing times now. And if you don't have Jesus Christ as your Savior and you get left behind for the tribulation period, you're not going to make it, I can tell you, because if you can't give your life and your heart to Christ now when it's easy, what makes you think that giving your life to Christ during the tribulation period is going to be easy when they can cut off your livelihood, they can cut off your food, your water, your electricity, or literally they can cut off your head? So now is the time to come to Christ. And there's no excuse, particularly in America, for saying that nobody told you, because as far as I know, many excellent Watchman channels are out there. Grand Supreme News Channel, he always gives a call to Christ. Watchman River, Tom has got an excellent channel. Uplift, or whatever they're called, they always have a altar call. And my channel. And I'm sorry that all I have to give to the Lord is the last few days and hours of my life. I'm sorry. I wish I had come to Christ a lot younger. And for you young people, God is no respecter of persons. As long as your prayer request is in line with the Word of God, He will answer it. So it doesn't matter if you're 8 or 11 or 12 or 13. Your prayers are just as powerful as an adult. So if you're sitting at home and your folks are fighting, they don't know how they're going to pay the rent or buy food or buy gas, close yourself in your room, get with God, ask God for help. Ask Him for help, and you'll be surprised at the opportunities and the blessings that come your way. I'm going to pray for you right now, that the Lord bless you and keep you, make His face to shine upon you, bless you physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, prosper you, even as your soul prospers. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Pop out.